At that moment, Sun Tzu began to enter the portal, and on the other side, he slowly emerged into the abode of the dead, a dark dungeon inhabited by many creatures. Sun Tzu immediately recognized it as a dungeon of shadows, more like a ruined city than a typical dungeon. Suddenly, a notification system appeared, informing him that he must prove his competence as the master of this land by surviving the allotted time. As the trial began, a scout goblin attacked Sun Tzu from behind. Sun Tzu sensed its presence and swung around, kicking it away. Breer warned him that if there was a scout, there were likely more goblins around, and Sun Tzu should deal with it before it could call for reinforcements. Sun Tzu rushed into battle, but Breer cautioned him not to be careless, as this goblin was weaker than him by several times. Sun Tzu grabbed the goblin's stone axe from its inventory, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. He began attacking the enemy, and in a matter of seconds, he destroyed a goblin with a single blow. The notification system then showed that he had destroyed the goblin scout, Suho, who immediately told Beru that those stronger than him have different colored names. At that moment, the two of them heard a strange sound, and when they turned around, they saw a goblin sitting on the roof, calling out to his friends. This made Suho angry, as he realized there was another scout. Shortly after, other goblins with yellow-colored names showed up, and the goblin captains arrived as well. Seeing all this, Suho asked Beru if he could help, but Beru replied that he was too far from the overlord to replenish his magic power, so he had to save his strength. Suho realized that meant Beru wouldn't help. At that moment, Suho used a skill, and the goblin axe behind him rose into the air and flew towards him. He then controlled it in the air, destroying all the goblins in its path. As he watched the battle, he realized he was adaptable, like the mythical hero. However, just then, another goblin archer on the roof shot an arrow at him, which he caught in time. He then destroyed the archer. Suho then noticed that the ruler's strength he could raise was no more than a kilogram, but another goblin attacked him from behind. Beru noticed this and asked how he was feeling, but their attention was drawn to a new, powerful goblin centurion that appeared on the battlefield. Suho didn't pay much attention to the centurion, and instead focused on the goblins attacking from all sides. He fought fiercely, throwing his dagger at the centurion with incredible speed, and taking down one goblin after another. As he fought, his points slowly dropped, but he was sure he could hold on for 4 hours, as it was his best chance to level up against tough opponents. Soon, the notification system showed that he had learned the resilience skill and his level had been raised. He managed to take out all the goblins, and the notification system said he had minutes to complete the mission. Beru was happy, and the notification system said Suho had received a reward, the shadow extraction skill. Sun Tzu also noticed that during the battle, he gained the skill resilience. After his awakening, he acquired various skills and a level-up system. Compared to before his awakening, he had become significantly more powerful. Beer explained that Suho's leveling system was an improved version of the system used by the Lord in the past. It was a means for Suho's steady growth. Suho had not realized he was the strongest Shadow Lord ever until then. He had also obtained the Rune Stone, which he could break and absorb. Upon cracking the Rune Stone, Suho learned the Shadow Extraction skill. This skill allowed him to transform the dead bodies of monsters into shadow soldiers under his control. It was akin to necromancy, but he could only command those weaker than himself. Suho needed a special command to extract the shadow. After some thought, he used a phrase similar to his father's to summon the shadow. As a result, small green-handed shadow goblins appeared. These shadow soldiers were slightly weaker and smaller than their living counterparts, but the notification system indicated they would disappear after 24 hours. Beer was surprised that the shadow extraction skill also affected the intelligence and level of the summoned soldiers, making it a highly useful ability. Suho realized the potential of this skill and was excited about it. However, he then noticed that he had not eaten in a day and his stomach started growling. He asked Bara how to get out of the current location, and Bara mentioned the key to the shadow dungeon. Sun Tzu realized that he could leave the hospital at any time, so he and BR decided to go eat a little later. While Sun Tzu was enjoying his hospital meal, BR observed him and said that he would explain to the little overlord what to do next. They were given 3 tasks. 1. Protect the Earth from demons from outer space, which Sun Suho suggested they could do by catching demonic creatures in the dungeon. 2. Find BR's missing mom. And 3. Help BR regain his strength, as he doesn't like regular soldiers and wants to show Sun Suho his full power. To regain his strength, BR said Sun Suho could absorb knowledge and magical items, but since he couldn't directly obtain magical power, he would have to find another way, like eating something magical. They then needed to check Sun Suho's magical ability level at the Hunter Association to see if he could enter the dungeon. At the association, Sun Suho was dismayed to be ranked as the weakest E-rank hunter. BR explained that a hunter's level is determined by magical power, while Sun Suho had focused on physical stats. However, Sun Suho said he shouldn't be comforted, as the shadow powers care more about his ability to defend the land. Still, Sun Suho needed to raise his level to join a dungeon team. He learned that even E-rank hunters can enter the dungeon as part of the collection team, which gathers the bodies of captured creatures. So Sun Suho decided to try that route to get into the dungeon. Later, he observed the dungeon workers carrying out magic crystals, realizing it was hard work. The man turned around and started talking to another hunter standing next to him. He expressed gratitude for knowing this person, as he didn't know any other awakened individuals besides him. This man was a teaching assistant in the art department of a Korean university. He was also a self-awakened E-rank hunter. The man felt lucky to have the other hunter around, as he was able to work in the dungeon. Suddenly, the man asked the other hunter, Suho, to apologize. He was sorry for causing problems at the university, as Suho was the only other awakened person there. The man had gotten scared and run away. Suho recalled this situation when he was told he was an awakened person and should do something about it. Suho replied that he was now an E-rank. The man apologized for not doing anything at the time. Suho told the man to raise his head, as he was also an E-rank awakened man. The association says E-rank hunters should run away from demonic creatures. The man was surprised Suho was also E-rank, as he had seen Suho fighting a demonic creature on the roof before. Suddenly, a shadow soldier appeared next to the man. The soldier said Suho was now at the level of a weak ant larva, and it would be safer if the man stayed close to Suho for protection. The man asked if the soldier had awakened as a summoned hunter, to which Suho replied that it seemed so. The group then entered a glowing, ruins-filled room in the dungeon, but couldn't find any demonic creatures. Instead, they discovered a strange, unknown weapon, leaving them puzzled about the true treasure hidden there. Instead of the boss, the men couldn't figure out what was in the ground, as they didn't even think there could be a weapon there. However, they decided to investigate further, with one of them suggesting they should test it to know for sure. They acknowledged it looked like a great weapon, but another warned that there could be traps since it seemed like a valuable treasure. The captain then approached the object and said he would take it, refusing to leave. When he touched the sword, it began to glow brightly. The captain claimed that even without a high rank, he could overcome it. Suddenly, a bright flash of light shone through the entire dungeon, and the captain found himself in a different place, with one of the other men standing next to him. The man said there didn't seem to be any traps, but the captain should still be careful with the mysterious sword. At that moment, the captain swung his sword and attacked one of his own comrades, shocking the other hunters. The captain then started transforming into a strange creature, declaring himself the Lord of the Fang, and vowing to destroy all who had invaded his domain. He proceeded to attack the other hunters one by one. Meanwhile, in the other dungeon, the workers realized they had been locked in. Sun Suho demonstrated his ability to summon goblins, surprising his companion, who noted that this power was unusual for a low-ranked hunter. The companion also pointed out that while shadow extraction requires a body, which can be inconvenient, Sun Suho could simply use the goblin bodies from the dungeon as free labor. Sun Suho recognized that shadow extraction was a very useful ability, even for a low-ranked hunter, and cannot enter the dungeon alone since he has started to divide the hunter's rank. A lot of time has passed, and more mistakes are made by the measuring machine. So when he hangs up the level, maybe his rank will be measured again. Additionally, Suho started to tell the taker that if he remembers their third mission, they can do it here because he said that it regenerates if it eats something magical. I'll tell you how many magic crystals these crystals contain magical powers and that it doesn't help with the loot anyway. So why don't I do it now? Suddenly, Suho asked the bear if the overlord really showed up here. Maybe something his father. But the bar replied that it wasn't like that. His father wasn't the only overlord. If it was his father, his village would be rebuilt in a second. But this creature and that odor were something else entirely, and right now they needed to be wary. The other diggers who were in this dungeon couldn't figure out what that noise was coming from the cave. As soon as they turned towards it, they realized that all that rumbling was coming from the cave right in front of them. Then they wondered if they had any direction to where their capture team was headed. But that's when they started looking closer, and they noticed that some strange creature had begun to emerge from the cave. As they got closer, the diggers realized it wasn't human, and this is a demonic creature. But they could not understand where they came from, because the hunters had recently entered the cave at the same moment. They started to turn around and run with all their might towards the exit to escape, but one of the workers started waving at the demonic creature in panic. Although he was gripped by panic, he desperately continued waving his pickaxe, but the demon dog came closer and grabbed the pickaxe with its huge mouth. The miner looking at the destroyed pickaxe could not understand how this monster managed to destroy it in a matter of seconds. And at that moment, he realized that he was about to be finished. With a desperate cry, he began to call for help from the other hunters. Just as the monster was about to attack the worker jumped back, at which point Suho intervened and ran up from somewhere and hit the demon dog on the head with all his might. Suho at the same moment shouted to his partner that he would buy them time, and they should get out desperately. His comrade started to run away with all his legs, and lastly said only that he was grateful to him, Suho. For his part, Suho started looking at the demonic dogs and realized that their names were highlighted in orange, and that meant that he was not at the same level as the mist burners in that women's university in Korea. But now he realized that he could handle them alone quite well because he had already raised his level, and now he was much stronger than before. But suddenly he felt angry and started telling him that he was ordering him to run outside after all. He didn't have to help every time of his own free will. But his comrade replied in a desperate voice that he was all alone and he would try his best to help him. Suho, on the other hand, turned his head and asked him to intercede if he was in danger, but he would still leave 3 goblins to protect him just in case. And now he took out his inventory and began to select the weapons. The hero had a goblin weapon he had obtained in the Shadow Dungeon, which would be better than a pickaxe against the demonic dogs. His comrade didn't understand how he could summon weapons and where he got such abilities from. Without hesitation, the hero rushed towards the demonic dogs with all his might. Soon, the notification system informed him that he had defeated the steel-toothed raccoon. His comrades were amazed at how strong their young lord was. The hero then commanded the demonic dog to let its shadow rise, much to the horror of the 3 goblins and his comrade. The hero was able to summon the demonic dog, which immediately started attacking the other demonic dogs, helping the hero. The hero's companion, Suho, was happy that the hero was getting used to fighting with shadow power. The hero realized that retrieving and summoning shadows did not waste his mana, and he decided to summon more creatures as his magic power increased. When the hero summoned another demonic dog, his comrade questioned how he could resurrect demonic beings, as this was clearly not a rank E ability. The hero hesitated, realizing he had lost his temper, and tried to convince his comrade that it was a rank E ability. The hero then turned towards the cave where the demonic creatures came from, realizing he still had one enemy left, though he couldn't figure out what it was. In the distance, he saw a strange silhouette of a person, and his comrade approached the figure, asking if they had survived the attack by the demonic creatures. At that moment, the expression on the hunter's face changed, and the guys realized that something had just happened. Immediately, Suho pulled his comrade aside, as a sword flew right in front of his face, shattering his glasses. As the massive sword struck the ground, Suho managed to pull his comrade away in fear. Without hesitation, Songo ordered his wolves to attack the hunter. The wolves pounced on the hunter from all sides, trying to destroy him. Simultaneously, Suho began to lead his comrade away. telling him that he was unlucky this time, as they had encountered a demonic creature that had lost its mind. Worse, the color of its name had turned red, indicating that it was a very powerful and dangerous opponent. Suho knew that the sensible thing to do would be to take his comrade and flee as far away as possible from this place. As they left the area, their hero began to ask Beru what it meant when he said the hunter carried the Overlord's energy, but was not yet his equal. Beru explained that while the hunter was not as powerful as the Overlord, he was still a formidable foe. Suho understood the situation and decided that he needed to plan his next move. Beru couldn't understand why the little lord wanted to fight, but Suho explained that the system had given him this assignment as a way to ensure his growth. He needed to defeat this monster and raise his level in order to meet his parents. After scattering all the weapons from his inventory, Suho was determined to defeat the enemy and increase his level. Beru was touched by Suho's words, acknowledging that he faced trials he couldn't handle, yet never avoided battles. Beru believed that this weak character possessed the qualities of a lord. Just as the hunter began to approach Suho, Beru said that the body of the thing that had taken hold of the hunter was a sword. If he could wrestle the sword away from the bearer would no longer be able to move. At this moment, the hunter began to approach Suho little by little, but the shadow wolves suddenly surrounded him and attacked him from all sides. As soon as one of the wolves was able to grab the hunter's sword, Suho realized that the hunter had indeed recovered after using magic. Suho added that shadow soldiers are essentially immortal if there is magic, as they can regenerate endlessly. Suho then realized that the power of the shadow soldiers was the key to superiority over any enemy. However, he saw that the hunter was easily destroying his shadow wolf with one swing of his sword, because the hunter's magic was still weak. Suddenly, the hunter turned to Suho, questioning how a lowly person like him could use the power of a shadow lord. Beard jumped into the conversation and started yelling at the hunter, defending Suho's status as a lord from the Shadow Lord lineage. The hunter didn't like this and replied that he hadn't thought of meeting the Shadow Lord lineage again. Without thinking, Suho began to raise his weapon, saying he would now test his level. He started throwing his weapon, destroying the goblins and aiming it straight at the hunter. But the hunter easily repelled all of his attacks. Suho then decided to act differently, extending his arm to take quantity. Beard realized this was the ruler's strength that Suho had been using since he was an infant. As Suho continued to attack, the hunter struck a few more times and broke the weapon he was holding. Looking at the hunter, Suho saw an intimidating gaze directed straight at him. Dodging all of the hunter's attacks, Suho realized it felt impossible for him to fight back. Suddenly, the hunter began to shout, calling Suho a coward hiding behind the Shadow Lord and the Shadow Soldiers. Suho smiled and replied, "Affecting the hunter's parents is a violation of the rules, and the hunter doesn't have the confidence to approach even if he provokes." Suho then recalled his conversation with Beard, realizing that if his seal is wrong, he could regain the ability to climb the tower. Beard replied that his powers were sealed when he was still young, and he could be said to have regained the skill of those shadows. Suho realized this place isn't a dream or reality, but a test to see if he can handle the powers. Suho then recalled the sensations he felt when he passed the Tower of Trials, and decided to summon his shadow dogs. But the hunter continued to attack and shouted at Suho, saying it doesn't work to send those meaningless shadow dogs. At this moment, something strange began to happen on the battlefield, as Suho began to extract shadows and transform.